Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Apocaflix Movies and the PADAWAN Podcast, our all Star Wars podcast where we're breaking down everything from the galaxy far, far away film, TV, comic books, novels, canon and non canon. Sometimes we dive into some legend stuff. Today, we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the film side of it. Before we get to that, first of all, I am Jake Berlin, aka Qui-Gonn Jake, as my Star Wars name is called. And today I am flying solo. We had a little bit of technical difficulties on our last show, and we weren't able to get it up. And I was joined by Keith and Jacob on that one. We'll save that topic for another time. Maybe we'll dive into it a little bit later on. But today, I wanted to shoot this one on the side, get this up, have some fun with this conversation, because we had some recently quite big news that dropped in the world of Star Wars. And if you've been paying attention to Twitter or Facebook or just your basic news site, you may have seen the news that Lucasfilm has hired a senior vice president of live action development and production, and that goes to the Rise of Skywalker producer Michelle Rejwan, and I'm totally butchering that last name. Rejwan, maybe Rejwan. I'm not 100% sure. Please don't hammer me down in the comments. But yeah, so this was announced a couple days ago, I believe on Monday, and it says that Lucasfilm has named her the SVP of Live Action Development and Production. Now that's a pretty big title, and we're going to dive into two sections here. First of all, we're going to talk about this hiring, who she is, what she has done, a little bit about her, and kind of what it means going forward, and then we're going to talk about what it could mean in the future, down the line. For in the next few years or whatever it may be. So, just first of all, look, when this news dropped, I had no idea who she was. I'm not the only one who knew that, and so it was a little bit shocking. It was a little different than what we were expecting. We may have been expecting someone big to kind of run this universe, a la Kevin Feige with the Marvel movies. Before we get to her, we also have to remember that SVP of live action development and production is a very tricky title. We don't exactly know what that means, what her job is. I know that a lot of news sites kind of report on that and kind of what it means, but there could be a lot of hands involved in this, and so we don't want to jump the gun too much, and maybe give her a chance, because I have seen a lot of people kind of come out and be like, "What are they doing? This is so weird. Why would they do this? Blah blah blah." And I understand where you're coming from. I do. But at the same time, we haven't seen what she's done yet. It was just announced on Monday. And she wasn't creatively involved or anything. In the trenches of the Rise of Skywalker. She's a producer, but we don't know what kind of role she had on that film. And it's not like if that movie is a failure, we're going to be blaming her for it. And so her tenure has not started yet. And so I just think that we have to give her a shot. You know what I mean? Like, we haven't seen what she's done. We don't know really what she's been involved in. And I've talked with my buddies about this, fellow, Jacob, Keith, Brian, and Gio. We've all have had a conversation about this. We don't know what kind of role she has had in Lucasfilm in the past number of years. We don't know, what she has really worked on, maybe with uncredited, names there. We don't know what kind of involvement she has had in maybe Rogue One, Solo, The Force Awakens, whatever it may be. We don't know her major involvement, but for me, as big as a company that Lucasfilm is, I do not see them giving this job to someone who is, one, not ready, and two, hasn't been groomed for it in some capacity. Now, I'm not saying that her tenure at Lucasfilm has specifically been leading up to this moment, right? That they've been training her for this. And look, they very well may have been. We don't know. But what she has worked on in the past number of years, and maybe her involvement or her ideas or the kind of way she goes about things or creative mindset possibly, or the way she works with directors or actors or whatever, that may be the reason she got the job. And we've seen that before. Remember, Kevin Feige wasn't a name before Kevin Feige, right? He had to kind of put some notches under his belt, and then he became Kevin Feige, right? We've seen it with plenty of times before this kind of situation. We have to give her a chance. We have to give her a shot to do what she's going to do, right? She's in this position for a reason. And like I said, I really don't think that Lucasfilm would make this choice without thinking of all the possibilities, without thinking of all the candidates, right? It's like, that's why I go on Twitter. I see all these people kind of, all the negative buzz around it. And I'm just like, first of all, you don't know the kind of decision they had to make, right? There could have been a dozen or 2 dozen other people up for the job, and she could have pitched some things, or her involvement with past films could have been so good they were like, she's just the right fit. Two, like I have said over and over again, we haven't seen what she's done yet. We have no idea what she's going to do, who she's going to hire. She could very well have this title, and she could very well hire someone directly underneath her to run it just as much as she does. She could eventually hire a Kevin Feige for Star Wars. She could hire that person, and then she can work with that person, right? I'm a baseball coach. That's what I love to do on the side, right? It's kind of a passion of mine. And as I was told as a young coach myself, if you're a great manager, if you're a great head coach, you hire smarter people underneath you, okay? And Kathleen Kennedy has made this decision because she could very well be the next step for Lucasfilm, right? Kathleen Kennedy saw something in this girl, in this woman, right? That she's like, wow, we need to keep her. We need to give her in charge of this. We need to give her these responsibilities, and the responsibilities are live action development and production. And so it's not president, right? It's not vice president of Lucasfilm. It's live action development and production. And so that title can be tricky. Obviously, she's going to be involved heavily with the live action films. But like I mentioned, she could be the head coach of all of this, the manager, and she could be hiring a number of smart coaches around her to make all of this happen, right? Maybe a Dave Filoni. I've always said that Dave Filoni would be a great Kevin Feige-like person for Lucasfilm. He knows Star Wars more than anybody on this earth other than George Lucas. George Lucas was his master, his mentor. He learned from the godfather of Star Wars. Why would he not be a great choice? Maybe he's already working with her on these, right? He's already working on The Mandalorian with Jon Favreau. He could very well be working on a live action movie, which would mean he's working with Michelle. And so we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the kind of moves that are going to happen, but this is very clear with this move. Lucasfilm's starting to go in a different direction. They're starting to kind of change things up here, make different things happen. They understand that the Skywalker saga has kind of wrapped up. They're in post. JJ's kind of pushing that movie forward for December. But once that movie wraps, they're going to be in a whole new phase of Star Wars. Yes, I'm using that right now because we're kind of in phase 1 of the new generation of Star Wars. We had The Force Awakens, we had Rogue One, The Last Jedi, Solo, and then Episode 9. 5 solid entries from my perspective. Yes, there's others I like more than some. I do have my problems with maybe some of them, but there's going to be 5 movies in this. Let's call it the phase 1 for the moment. She's going to lead us into phase 2. We don't know what's being planned. Maybe The Mandalorian is kind of a part of that, right? Cassian Andor, part of that. The Benioff and Weiss movies, part of that. She's going to be working with all of these people. And I highly, highly doubt it. And yes, this is an argument can be made that maybe they've been too creatively open with these 5 movies, that they're allowing directors and writers to kind of go off on their own path rather than creating a construct story between all of these things. I have no doubt that I don't know her, I don't know the kind of work that she has done on these movies before, but I have no doubt that she will allow directors to kind of do their own creative thing, but with a through line. Something that fans have been calling for, something that we've kind of been complaining about from the beginning, that they're just kind of all doing their own thing, that there's no true story to it. They need to get people that are going to go back to back to back. Benioff and Weiss aren't doing the first of 3 movies. They're doing 3 movies. Maybe they get a different director for those 3 movies, but they are going to be involved in those 3 movies. It's going to be very Game of Thrones-like for those movies with them. And Michelle's going to be working with them directly. And so I think that, look, is it an interesting move and a shocking move? 100%. But, again, we don't know what she's going to be doing. We don't know the kind of moves that Lucasfilm's going to be making now that we're going into phase 2 of the new generation of Star Wars. We're going to be a few years of spacing between Episode 9 and the next movie, right? We don't know what's going to happen, and so it leaves me excited because I want to see what she does. It leaves me very interested to see what happens going forward, and so that kind of leads me to my next point, though. I mentioned her, Kathleen Kennedy, and she's the head of Lucasfilm. She's kind of running everything at the moment. What does this mean for her, right? There have been rumors circulating that that she's out as Lucasfilm, like she's gone, she's done, that she's leaving, she's moving on, and that very well could be the case. But as of right now, she is still the president of Lucasfilm. She's still making the moves. Excuse me. She's still making all the moves behind the scenes, hiring directors, hiring vice presidents like Michelle, and giving all these titles to all these people. And so, hey, look, maybe she groomed her to kind of take her job one day, and maybe Kathleen Kennedy will step out. I know that a lot of rumors and stuff were circulating when she signed that new deal a while back. For me, myself, I felt like that new deal, because I think it was, if off the top of my head, if I'm not mistaken, it was a 3-year deal. I always thought that she was signing that new deal, and then at some point within that deal, she was going to leave on her own terms. She was going to move on because, look, as far as Kathleen Kennedy goes, she is one of the all-time great producers. There are very few producers like her. Excuse me. What she has done over the last multiple decades with films and franchises is something that is touched by very few people. And so I give all the credit in the world to her. Whenever I see her name on a project, I will be excited. But as president of Lucasfilm, kind of calling the shots, she's made a little questionable calls. Like I mentioned earlier, letting directors and writers kind of do their own thing for each story, even though the movies are supposed to be consistent. That's always been a question. And so maybe they're starting to change things. But like I said, I do think that at some point in the next little while, maybe after Episode 9, we will see Kathleen Kennedy step away from Lucasfilm as president, and there will be someone new named. That name, I have no idea who. No clue. Maybe Disney hires someone to run it like a Marvel Studios, like the Kevin Feige does. Who knows? But that takes nothing away from Kathleen Kennedy. I just think that I think the franchise needs something new, some new direction. And maybe this is the first step by hiring Michelle Rejwan. That's how I'm going to say it, Rejwan. Or I'll just say Michelle. Hiring Michelle as Senior Vice President of Live Action Development. This could be the first step of many. This could be the one step that kind of leads to an ultimate step down from Kathleen Kennedy. We're not sure. But as of right now, she's still the president of Lucasfilm. And I believe that'll probably be the case through Episode 9. Because in reality, why would you step down before Episode 9, right? Why would Lucasfilm fire her if that were to ever happen before Episode 9? She made all of this happen. George Lucas gave her his company to run. She made all these movies happen, right? She brought back JJ for Episode 9. She made the spin-offs happen. She made all this stuff happen. Why would they do that before the movie releases? So, to all of you out there who are like, oh my God, she's gone, all the rumors, blah, blah, blah. Just hold back a little bit. Let's take it with a grain of salt. Let's really think about the situation of the timing and everything. We still have 6 months until the movie comes out. They're not going to can her 6 months before Episode 9. Look, if they do tomorrow, I'll pull back my words and I'll be like, wow, okay, they did it. But as of right now, I really don't believe that'll be the case. And so, yeah, I mean, in the article, and this is coming from Deadline. I'm not sure if they broke the news on Monday or not, but they had some words from Kathleen Kennedy, and I'm going to say those now. It's a pretty big quote, so stay with me here for a second, but they're pretty interesting. So, quote, working with Michelle over the last 7 years as a producer on both The Force Awakens and now The Rise of Skywalker, I have seen firsthand her skills collaborating with writers and directors, and I've been incredibly impressed with her creative skills and her ability to manage the complexity surrounding these massive projects. I know the importance of building a team that you trust and have fun working with. It is a paramount to our success. That's an exciting momentum building around the future of the franchise, and both myself and the Lucasfilm team look forward to working with Michelle and shaping the future in all areas of story development, from theatrical film development and live action content to Disney Plus. And so, hey, she's going to be running a lot of stuff. It makes complete sense because there's a lot of different mediums for Star Wars, right? It's not like Marvel where there's just live action movies. They have the television now on Disney Plus. They've always had animated TV shows with the Clone Wars and Rebels. We will definitely see more of those down the line. It makes sense for them to kind of separate and give this person this section, this person this section, this person this section. And right now, the first move is hiring Michelle as the Senior Vice President of Live Action Development and Production. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm down for it. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I don't know anything about her. The article mentioned that she was co-producer on The Force Awakens, like Kathleen Kennedy said. And then it looks like she's worked closely with JJ as she was a co-producer on Star Trek Into Darkness and a producer on Super 8, both JJ films. And so, and obviously it says that she didn't work on The Last Jedi, and so she could very well be a JJ product. And who knows, maybe JJ is going to be involved in this franchise down the line as well. I know that he just signed that deal with Warner Media, but that does not mean that he couldn't be involved with this franchise down the line creatively or giving some pointers to future filmmakers. But I think the move is an interesting one. I think that going in a different direction and having some fresh eyes, some fresh hands in the pot is a smart move for them, because I'm not the only one that's been saying that someone else should be maybe taking over Lucasfilm and kind of putting one through line everything and not just letting people creatively do it. I'm all for allowing filmmakers to do their own thing, but I'm also an advocate of the fact that I think that Ryan and JJ should have worked on these movies together, or it should have been JJ throughout all three of them, because The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, they don't mesh well together. They don't feel like a movie and its sequel. They feel like two separate movies, and that's one of the issues with Kathleen Kennedy saying, "Hey, we're letting filmmakers do their own thing." And so, although I like some of Colin Trevorrow's work, and him stepping down from Episode 9 was the way it happened was a little bit of a bummer. I'm glad that JJ's back, because he's kind of wrap it all together and bring it all back together. And I think maybe, obviously, Michelle worked on The Rise of Skywalker with him, and so maybe they have a really good relationship. They like what they saw from her, and they were like, man, we can see her doing some good things for this franchise in the future, and boom, give her this kind of job, which is a major headline. And so, but like I've mentioned, no news on Kathleen Kennedy as of yet, and in no way am I saying that Michelle is going to take over as president of Lucasfilm. I'm a believer in the fact that I think Dave Filoni would be a amazing choice for that job, but I also like him as a creative filmmaker. Whether it's on the animated stuff or doing The Mandalorian and directing his first ever episode, because I think he can do a really, really cool spin-off movie. But that's for another time. And so, but yeah, that's gonna be all my thoughts on this news. Again, Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy have announced that Michelle Rejwan, who was producer on The Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens, is now the Senior Vice President of Live Action Development and Production, which is a big title, but quite a mysterious and interesting title as well. And so, if you guys have some thoughts on this, if you're interested, if you like something I said or didn't like something I said, leave some thoughts in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys on this one. I'm sure we're going to be debating this one for a while, and see what kind of move she makes after Episode 9 is made. The big one will obviously be when Celebration comes next year, and how involved she is, and if her face is up there. And then we'll see what kind of is in store for Kathleen Kennedy as well. And so, again, I am Jake Blinn, a.k.a. Qui-Gonn Jake. This is the Padawan Podcast from Apocaflix Movies. Make sure you like and share as always, and of course, hit that subscribe button. Can't thank you guys enough for that. Subscribe to this channel. It helps us out a ton. Also, head over to iTunes. This and our movie show and some other stuff will be up on there audio-wise. And then we have an official Instagram. We created an Instagram. All of our content goes up on there. Clips of stuff, some fun news stuff as well. Posting posters or images or whatever it may be. And so check that out at Apocaflix Movies everywhere. We really, really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for joining me on the Padawan Podcast today. Make sure you check us out next time, and may the Force be with you.